From 4, Chapter 2, 2.3 Living Processes in Multicellular Organism. Organization in plants. So many organelles combine together to form a cell, and then the cells are being specialized into many different types to perform a specific function. So a group of similar cells combine together to form a tissue, and then a group of different kind of tissue combine together to form an organ. More than one organ combine together to form a system. More than one system combine together to form an organism. Example of cells is palisade mesophyll cell, which is under parenchyma tissue, and parenchyma tissue will combine with another tissue to form a leaf, and then a leaf will combine with another organ in plant to form a shoot system, and eventually a shoot system will combine with a root system to form a plant. Xylem vessel, which is one of the components of xylem tissue. Sieve element, which is one of the components of a phloem tissue. Let's talk about xylem vessel first. So what's special about the structure of xylem vessel? First, there is no end wall between one cell to another cell. And then the substance are flow in one way only. And then the cell wall of xylem vessel are thickened with lignin. Next, the cells are basically dead, so there is no more content in the cell to allow continuous flow of substance through the xylem vessel. So the xylem vessel is a long continuous hollow tube. The function is to transport water and mineral salts from the root to other part of the plant. Now the sieve element. This is a sieve element, and this is the sieve plate. And then one sieve element will join with another sieve element from end to end to form a sieve. A sieve is one of the components of a phloem. So the substance will flow in two ways from the root to the other part of the cell of the plant, and from the plant to the root, from the other part of the plant to the root. So the function is to transport organic material from leaf to storage organs such as fruit. Actually, the leaf will undergo photosynthesis to produce food. After the food has produced, will be transported to other part of the plant by the phloem for the plant to survive. So what you will see when you cut through a leaf, this part here, not the center. Zoom in, you will see something like this. The first layer is the basic cuticle, and then the second layer consists of a group of cells which combine together to form the upper epidermis, and then there come the palisade mesophyll layer, which consists of palisade mesophyll cells. The palisade mesophyll cells are in vertical position and then are close from one to another, and then they contain a lot of chloroplasts, therefore have high chlorophyll density. Because most of the photosynthesis will happen here, so the high chlorophyll density arrangement allow maximum absorption of sunlight for photosynthesis. The next layer, the spongy mesophyll layer. In this layer, the cells are loosely arranged, and then there is a lot of air spaces between the cells. The air spaces allow exchange of gas from the inside of the leaf to the palisade mesophyll cell. The gas will actually diffuse through the stoma to the spongy mesophyll layer. And then because there is a lot of air space here, this allows the gas to be diffused quickly to the next layer, that is the palisade mesophyll layer. Then there come the gut cell. It's a kind of modified lower epidermal cell, and then the thicker cell wall is on the inner side. The cell wall on the inner side is thicker and then the outer side. Then they are responsible for the control of the opening and closing of the stoma. Stoma is an opening that allows the exchange of gas and carbon dioxide. So how the palisade mesophyll cell, spongy mesophyll cell, gut cell, xylem and phloem work together in a leaf. So leaf is the site for photosynthesis. In order for photosynthesis to happen, it requires a lot of water and carbon dioxide. The water will actually come from the soil and is being transported by the xylem to the leaf. How about the carbon dioxide? Where does it come from and how to enter the palisade mesophyll layer for photosynthesis to happen? The carbon dioxide from the external environment diffuse into the leaf through the stoma, then enter the spongy mesophyll layer. Because there is a lot of air spaces between the cell in the spongy mesophyll layer, so the carbon dioxide can quickly diffuse to the next layer, that is the palisade mesophyll layer. Then with the supply of the carbon dioxide coming from the stoma and the supply of the sunlight coming from the top of the leaf, photosynthesis happen. After food is being produced, the food will be carried to other part of the cell by the phloem tissue for the survival of the plant. Root hair cell. This is a root hair cell, and this is it has a long projection extend from the cell, which will add sufficient area for maximum absorption of water and mineral salt. And then the root hair cell can be found on the outermost layer of the root, and then the function is to help in the absorption of water and mineral salt from the soil. So in this lesson we have learned about sieve element, which is responsible for the transport of food from the leaf to other part of the plant, and then the xylem vessel, which is responsible for the transport of water and mineral salt from the soil to other part of the plant. And then they are actually a kind of vascular tissue. About the plant tissue, I will be explaining in the next lesson. So palisade mesophyll cell and spongy mesophyll cell are under ground tissue and also a kind of parenchyma tissue. Palisade mesophyll cells and spongy mesophyll cells are basically responsible for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis happen here. And then the next one, the gut cell and the root hair cell. The gut cell is responsible for the closing and opening of stoma, whereby the root hair cell help in the absorption of water and mineral salt from the soil to other part of the plant. They are a kind of dermal tissue. After finish discussing the plant cell, now we proceed to plant tissue. Plant tissue basically can be divided into two types, the meristematic tissue and the permanent tissue. The meristematic tissue can be further divided into two types, the apical meristem tissue, the lateral meristem tissue, whereby permanent tissue can be further divided into three types, the dermal tissue, the ground tissue, and the vascular tissue. Ground tissue consists of parenchyma tissue, collenchyma tissue, sclerenchyma tissue. Vascular tissue consists of xylem tissue and phloem tissue. So a very brief introduction about all these different kind of tissue. Then only we proceed to the more detailed discussion of each type of tissue. Meristematic tissue are dividing tissue. They will undergo dividing to produce new part of the plant. So the meristematic tissue are present in the growing part, or we call the growing region of the plant. And then apical meristem is responsible for the growth of the length of the branch, whereby lateral meristem is responsible for the growth of the diameter of the stem and the root of a branch. The other branch tissue, the permanent tissue, they will not undergo dividing and they are permanently placed at the fixed position in the branch. The dermal tissue cover the outermost layer of the branch. The ground tissue is mainly responsible for photosynthesis. The vascular tissue is mainly responsible for the transport of substances within the branch. Let's look a bit detail about meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. The cells of meristematic tissue are called meristem. The characteristic of those cells are they have no vacuole, last nucleus, then cytoplasm, and then cell wall. These cells combine together to form meristematic tissue. Meristematic tissue consists of young and actively dividing cells which are undifferentiated. Undifferentiated means they have not yet undergone cell differentiation. Cell differentiation usually happens before mitosis so that the cell produced are specialized to perform a particular function. So the function of meristematic tissue is the meristem will divide actively to form specialized structure such as bud of shoot and tips of root. This helps to increase the length and the girth, the diameter of the branch. The meristematic tissue can be further divided into two types, the apical meristem, the lateral meristem. The apical meristem are located at the bud of shoot and tip of root, whereby the lateral meristem can be found on the lateral side, that is the peripheral area of the stem and the root. Example of lateral meristem is the cambium. Permanent tissue. Permanent tissue consists of a group of living or dead cells formed by meristematic tissue, and they have already lost their ability to divide, and they will permanently placed at fixed position in the branch body. This is just a brief introduction about permanent tissue because it is a very new term to you guys. This is not important, just to make you guys understand the permanent tissue and the differences between permanent tissue and meristematic tissue better. And then the important part is the below one. The permanent tissue consists of dermal tissue, ground tissue, and vascular tissue. The dermal tissue will cover and protect the plant and control gas exchange and water absorption. Because the dermal tissue covered all the plant and form the outermost layer of the plant, so it can act as a barrier between the inside of the plant and the external environment to control the gas exchange and water absorption. Example of dermal tissue are epidermis and root hair. Ground tissue consists of three types: the parenchyma tissue, which is responsible for photosynthesis, and then collenchyma tissue, sclerenchyma tissue, responsible to provide support to different part of the branch. The collenchyma tissue will provide support to young non-woody stem. The sclerenchyma tissue will provide support to all mature part of the branch. Next one, vascular tissue. They will transport fluid and nutrient internally. That is the function of vascular tissue. The xylem tissue will transport water and mineral salt from the soil to other part of the plant. The phloem tissue will transport organic substances from the leaf to the other part of the plant. So this picture will show you the location of one of the plant tissue, the meristematic tissue, which is the dividing tissue in the longitudinal section of shoot apex, and also the longitudinal section of root apex. So basically, meristemic tissue can be divided into two types, that is apical meristem and lateral meristem. First one, the apical meristem consists of two types, that is shoot apical meristem and root apical meristem. The shoot apical meristem is located at the butt of shoot and is responsible for the growth of the length of the shoot, whereby the root apical meristem is located just above the root cap in the root. The root cap is responsible for the protection of root apical meristem. The root apical meristem is responsible for the extension of the root. So here is the root cap, and here is the here is the root apex, and here is the shoot apex. So the second meristematic tissue is the lateral meristematic tissue. They are located in the stem and the root on the lateral side, mean as the side part. And then they are responsible for the growth in the diameter of the stem and the root. So they are responsible for the growing of the. So this picture will show you what kind of plant tissue you will find whether in the cross section view of a leaf, or a cross section view of a stem, or a cross section view of a root. First, the uppermost layer is the cuticle, and then the second layer is the epidermis in the leaf. So the epidermis is basically a type of dermal tissue. The next layer, palisade mesophyll and the spongy mesophyll tissue, which are responsible for photosynthesis, are ground tissue. And then the phloem tissue and the xylem tissue, which are responsible for the transport of substances, are vascular tissue. Next, the stem. Also, the epidermis is the dermal tissue, whereby the cortex and the pith are ground tissue. Also the same, xylem and phloem are vascular tissue, and then the cambium is actually meristematic tissue. Next, the root hair and epidermis are dermal tissue, and then the cortex is ground tissue, whereby the xylem and phloem are vascular tissue, and then the cambium is a meristematic tissue. Permanent tissue, the one which will not undergone differentiation or cell dividing, consists of three types: dermal tissue, ground tissue, and vascular tissue. First one, the dermal tissue. Dermal tissue include epidermal cell, gut cell, and root hair cell. Function is to cover and protect the plant, control gas exchange and water absorption. Because the dermal tissue is situated at the outermost layer of the plant, so they can act as a barrier to control the gas exchange and water absorption between the inside of the plant and the external environment. First one, the cell that can be found in dermal tissue, the epidermis. The function is to protect the plant from mechanical injury. Then the second one, the waxy cuticle on it prevent excess loss of water from the surface of the leaf, so that the water can be stored and be utilized for the life process of the plant. Next, the root hair cell. The root hair cell has a long projection extend from the cell, and this structure adds surface area for maximum absorption of water and mineral salt. The third cell that can be found in dermal tissue is the gut cell. The gut cell will control the opening and closing of the stoma. Ground tissue, another type of permanent tissue. So, where is the ground tissue located? They are located in the branch other than those of the dermal tissue and the vascular tissue. And ground tissue consists of parenchyma tissue, collenchyma tissue, and sclerenchyma tissue. So how to differentiate between parenchyma tissue, collenchyma tissue, and sclerenchyma tissue? This is the cross-section view of those tissue, and the parenchyma tissue are usually round in shape, whereby the collenchyma tissue are polygonal shape, and then the sclerenchyma tissue have very thick cell wall. First, we are going to discuss the parenchyma tissue. The parenchyma tissue contains parenchyma cell. The characteristics of parenchyma cell are thin cell wall, prominent nucleus, and protoplast. Protoplast is the combination of nucleus and cytoplasm. And then example of parenchyma cells are palisade mesophyll cells and spongy mesophyll cells. The function is to store food and carry out photosynthesis. Next, the collenchyma tissue. So what's special about the structure is they have thick deposit of cellulose in the cell wall, and they appear polygonal shape in cross-section view. The function is to provide support to young non-woody stem. So the next one is the sclerenchyma tissue. Sclerenchyma tissue are usually dead cells that have thickened cell wall containing lignin. The cell wall of sclerenchyma tissue are very thick, and then the sclerenchyma cells are rigid and non-stretchable, and they are usually found in non-growing region of plant body because they are permanent tissue, so they can only be found in non-growing region of plant body. The function is to provide mechanical support to the mature part of the plant. Next, the third permanent tissue is the vascular tissue, which consists of xylem tissue and phloem tissue. First, we are going to discuss xylem tissue. The xylem tissue consists of xylem vessel, trachea, fiber, and parenchyma. The function again is to transport water and mineral salt from the root to other part of the plant. So what are the adaptation of xylem vessels so that they can transport substance better? This is very important and often asked in exam. First, the cells are joined from end to end with no cell wall to form a long and hollow continuous tube. There is no cell wall from one cell to another cell, so that lesser blockage for the transportation of substance. Next, the cells are basically dead, so therefore there will be no more cell content to allow continuous flow of water and mineral salt. Again, this is to maximize the flow of substance within the xylem tissue, so that the flow of water and mineral salt can be increased. Next one, the cell wall of the xylem vessel are thickened with lignin, so the xylem vessel is can be very strong, and then this help to support the plant. Next, the other vascular tissue is the phloem tissue. The phloem tissue consists of sieve, tube, component cells, parenchyma, and fiber. Again, the function is to transport organic material from leaf to other part. Adaptation of phloem tissue. First, the cells in phloem tissue are joined end to end and contain hole in the end wall, which is also the sieve plate, forming tube which allow organic substances to flow through easily. Between one cell to another cell, there is a sieve plate, and then the sieve plate contains a lot of holes, which allow the organic substance to flow through. Next, another adaptation of phloem tissue is the component cells of the phloem are attached to the sieve tube, as it gives energy to the sieve tube to help in the transportation of organic substances, which means there is a component cell beside the sieve tube, and then the component cell is attached to the sieve tube to supply energy to help the sieve tube to transport substances.